Welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. This is RJ, and as always, I'm joined by ornithologists and curators of birds at the Field Museum, John Bates and Shannon Hackett, who are married, and also my wife Amanda. Today we're focusing on a fascinating species, the palm nut vulture. This is a bird John has been eager to highlight, and once you learn more about it, it's easy to see why. Found in Africa, palm nut vultures don't eat carrion, but instead their diet is mostly plant-based. They're also striking in appearance, mostly white plumage, a sharp contrast to the darker vultures many of us picture, and they're truly impressive to observe in the wild. John has had the opportunity to see palm nut vultures in the wild, and today he'll share first-hand insight into their behavior and ecology. Okay, let's go grab our binoculars and get into it.
I saw something fly from tree to tree, and I was thinking, oh, good, maybe that'll be something different.
Oh.
When I put my binoculars on it, and it was a junco.
Same old
And
guy,
suddenly
yeah.
I realized there were more of them doing the same kind of thing in addition to the ones on the ground. They're just opportunistic, I think.
Yeah. They're so cute.
All right, well, should we talk about the palm nut vulture?
Yeah, let's do palm nut vulture.
So, John, this is your bird. You picked this. Do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, this is the palm nut vulture is a bird I'm guessing most people have never heard of, and that's one of the reasons why I picked it. It's a bird from Africa. I happen to have a memory of seeing one many, many years ago when I was probably about 12 or 13, and we took a trip to Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania. And I was just I remember thinking, why does that bird exist? And I've always kind of thought that. And since that time, I've worked in Uganda and places where they're not uncommon. But I just think they're a really crazy bird, just sort of one of those species that does something fairly radically different than everything else that they're related to, supposedly. And so that's one of the reasons why I put it out there.
And so for people who haven't seen them or looked up pictures of them yet, so they're a white vulture, right? Can you talk a little bit about what they look like and then talk about what they do differently too?
Yeah, they're kind of white, and they kind of a white body, which isn't unique to palm nut vulture among the old world vultures. So one of the things that's really important is New World vultures turn out to not be closely related to Old World vultures. So our turkey vultures and black vultures are each other's closest relative with the condors. And then in Africa, you've got this whole other group. And we can talk about this because palm nut vultures actually got an interesting set of relationships within the vultures. But they're basically this white-bodied bird with kind of brown wings and a red facial skin. And they're called palm nut vultures because 60% of their diet is literally palm nuts.
Sure.
And they take the pericarp is what it's called, the covering of the seed, and that's what, that's a major part of their diet. That's what they feed their chicks. And so palms are really widespread across Africa, and so that bird has a range that covers an awful lot of sub-Saharan Africa.
I noticed that they're not bald like other vultures, right? And so we talked about before how like vultures being bald could be a way that they've adapted from eating like dead carcasses and getting stuff on their head. I just thought that was interesting, though. This bird we looked at that's not bald is not sticking its head into dead things.
So the only phylogenetic work is pretty old, going back to about 2005, and so there's been a lot of things that would be worth looking at again with respect to the relationships of the old world vultures. Palm nut vulture comes out in a group at the base of below the rest of the old world vultures, a lot of which have naked heads and things. And it comes out with two birds. One is Madagascar serpent eagle, of all things, and the other one is lammergeier, or bearded vulture. And both those birds have feathers on their heads. And so it's interesting that these three birds, which are in different habitats, different geographies, appear to be each other's closest relatives, which, but very, very old lineages on the order of millions of years of separation. And Lammergeier, this, or bearded vulture, is this bird that breeds in mountains from South Africa at high elevations all the way up to Europe and then over into the Himalayas. And unlike African vultures, which are the classic, there's a group of African vultures which classically come down on these lion kills after the lions are done and clean everything else up. So they're constantly sticking their head into these carcasses and things, which is why they probably have naked heads. Lammergeiers feed mostly on small deer-like things and goats. And one of the things they're famous for is in these high mountains, they found these sites where they will take the bones that they find and they will fly up and drop them on these rocks to break them open so they can get at the marrow to eat them.
Oh, that's
Oh.
smart.
And so they've got
Cool.
some really interesting behaviors. So, but palmlet vultures literally hang around in palm trees for the most part and eat a lot of palm fruits, although it's also clear that they fairly frequently maintain association fairly close to some sort of water, which can be either saltwater or freshwater. And in those situations, they're often seen foraging for fish, dead fish and things. And so they'll definitely, they can be kind of vulture-like in that respect.
They must be the laziest of all of the vultures. Because if you're a vulture that needs to find dead things, you got to work pretty hard to find the dead things you're going to stick your head in and eat. So they just like laze around. They find a palm tree, which is there are a lot of palm trees in Africa. So they find a palm tree and just sit there and just like reach up and grab a palm. So maybe they
Sounds
a
awesome.
palm fruit and use their feet to kind of tear it apart. And so they just sit there. Their activity diet says they sit in a tree for more than 60% of a day.
Oh,
That is a lazy bird. I don't think of any bird being in one
that
place
much.
like that. You can't do that if you have to actually find your food.
I mean,
So
it's
how come
genius, isn't it?
How come more things haven't adapted to do things like that?
I was to say, it sounds pretty smart, right?
I think, I think birds like mourning doves, for instance, will gorge themselves and then just sit around digesting for long periods of time.
No,
So
they
I
don't
think,
just digest, they whine. They whine while they're digesting.
They're like, oh, my stomach.
That's what they're whining about.
I knew I shouldn't have
Not
brought that
again.
up.
Oh, it hurts.
I mean, it is a whole area of research on birds. With they call it studying time budgets, and I think you're right. The palm-nut vulture is a bizarre bird in that respect because on the if they're not scavenging and eating fruit, maybe because that's what they're doing, they can sit around for a long time. As long as you find a good place to get some palm fruits, you can satiate yourself and then just watch the world go by.
Okay, so how do you say their genus and species? Gypohyrax angolensis? Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
And
It's
of
really
course,
interesting. Again, interesting words. We have 23 of them.
Oh.
And one is a Malagasy tissue for which we don't have the specimen. We just have a tissue only specimen, right? That seems to be what the database says. So the other 22 are between 1931 and 1967 in our collections. So there's nothing modern in our collections from them. But
that's I would say that in general, vultures are one of the least likely things to be added to collections.
Why is that?
Because if they're scavenger species, they smell pretty bad and are kind of not fun to skin. And then they're also
they're in the air so much of the time. You'd have to have it. They're not that easy to actually collect. So you got to find them on the ground. That's not that easy. So they're, the gyps part of their Gypohyrax is Greek for vulture. And then hyrax means hawk or falcon. And it's interesting, these birds, when they were described, were put with hawks and falcons in the genus Falco. So that's a wild idea now, given what we know, which is that falcons go with songbirds and parrots separated from hawks. So that's that was a grab bag of stuff. And now it's it's a monotypic genus. There's only one species in the genus. So there aren't more of these things.
Did they have any predators?
So interesting question. I was looking at a little bit of this, and one thing that stunned me, which is a crazy thing about West Africa in particular, is bushmeat is very popular, and so people will eat them, and so there are places where they'll be killed for that.
Harvested. Yeah. Wow.
I think otherwise it's they're big enough that they're probably not going to be attacked very often by birds of prey, for instance. Because they're up in the trees, they kind of avoid a lot of the big terrestrial mammals that would be out there. So I mean, they've got a great life, and just take it over. By the way, Shannon, we gotta figure out that Madagascar one, because that's bizarre to me. There's got to be a story.
No,
there.
Malawi.
Oh, Malawi. Oh, I'm sorry. I heard Madagascar. Okay,
I hope I didn't say Madagascar. That would be wrong. But,
yeah, I mean, so another aspect about them, which is curious too, is a lot of times when things specialize, you think that that's a kind of limits you evolutionarily, and I think this is a bird that has probably had a lot of little changes around the edge of its range over time. So there are probably places where it used to occur that it doesn't, but it's also done really, it's kind of it's not a forest bird per se. So when people cut down forest and turn it into sort of a second growth and farmland, they often plant palms. And so it's a bird that's actually probably benefited by human activity in a lot of parts of its distribution, just because things that humans do end up being good with respect to what it likes to eat.
Apparently, it doesn't like to sit in those man-made palm groves, though.
Right.
So it'll go in there and get things, but it doesn't like to sit in there. So they're only lazy up to a point, right?
Well, no, what you're saying is they're willing to sort of go in and work. I mean, I think nest sites may be something that's kind of important, because, and I think this may be different, and certainly different than a lot of New World vultures. They build a pretty bulky nest. And so they're probably got to find specific trees that are capable of handling the size of the nest.
So you talked about distribution earlier a little bit, and I saw that, so they're like sub-Saharan Africa. So is that up in the northern part of the continent, right? Or central northern? Or?
So it's below the Sahara, which, so when I think of Africa, it's basically this tiny little narrow band along the Mediterranean, which is sort of North Africa. And then you get into the Sahara until about a third of the way down. And then you get a series of interesting bands of successively wetter forest going down into the Congo Basin.
Okay.
And then you get below that, you get Miambo woodland down to the southern temperate areas in South Africa and stuff. And they're the area they're most common is some of these areas that sound to me like they're semi arid forests around the edge of the Congo Basin. And there they can be really dense. I mean, the place that I've seen them, they're in the capital city of Uganda, which is Kampala, which is, again, it used to be, historically, going back thousands of years, it would have been predominantly tropical forest. And today, most of that forest is gone and replaced with palms and other, just farms basically across that landscape. And they do pretty well in those situations.
Do you know anything about the pairs that are in are there some in South Africa? I read just as I
They
was
said
reading
there's
that.
a really small number. Yeah.
Yeah. How?
And no, I think that's
No. Yeah.
it's an interesting situation. Where was it? God, it may have been even in Malawi. There were some places where they talked about recent expansion. And again, I think it's like, I'm always fascinated that humans can go into areas that other things wouldn't use because they're unsuitable, in the sense of being too deserty, for instance, and then change them by damming up the water and suddenly making it easier for big trees to be there. And once the big trees are there, other birds can move in. And I'm guessing that palm nut vulture in some areas of Africa is actually done better because of that. And South Africa is certainly a place where they've done an awful lot of alteration of the original landscapes with the addition of ranches and farms and things.
I went down a deep rabbit hole about how Angola got its name. That's why I love doing this podcast so much, because I learn all kinds of bizarre things. And so I think I have a new heroine in my life, Queen Nzinga. Do you know about this? How Angola got its name? So I guess there were two kingdoms in the 15th century, Ndongo and Matamba, and they were ruled by this Queen Nzinga, and she led the charge for that entire, the whole part of that 1500s time against the Portuguese who were trying to colonize. And so she spent all that time kind of pushing the Portuguese away. So there were these two kind of kingdoms. The Matamba one has a history of being ruled by females. So there were women rulers. So Africa is so different today than it was, 500 years ago. Yes, and so she was leading the struggle against the Portuguese because of the transatlantic slave trade. So she, she was pushing back on that. And this Matamba place, where all the female rulers had a tradition, it became a sanctuary for escaped slaves. So that, even though I guess it's the Portuguese that named it Angola, but but it has a history that I found. I liked that. So Angola means king.
I mean, I think that's there are an awful lot of birds that are named angolensis that have broad distributions across southern Africa. And I think what it really also shows is that the first scientific work in Africa was done probably during those times. Yeah.
Yeah. So most of these birds were described based on things that were collected in Angola. So that's where the angolensis comes from in that. But the Angola part has an interesting history to people like me who don't know nearly enough about, world history.
Shannon always talks about names, and I'll just point out that there are names that are just complete misunderstandings of where the bird came from.
Sure. And people have lied. We found instances of that too. People just made it up where they got something from.
Oh, wow.
Isn't the turkey?
Yes.
Wasn't that why the turkey was called a turkey?
Yes. It did not come from Turkey. Yeah.
Wait, I didn't remember that. Is that for real?
That's for real. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's where the British people thought it came from. Well, it did,
gosh.
but it had a conflict. Go back and listen to our podcast on turkeys, Amanda. You'll relearn that. Because we did talk about that at that time. There's another one of these factoid things where I go down my own little rabbit holes of weirdness before I remember I'm supposed to be learning about a bird, not world history or these bizarre facts. And I'm completely fascinated in social media and other places by these bizarre facts that you see someone putting. So yeah, I can go down a lot of those rabbit holes.
Something that I thought was cool about the palm nut vulture that I read too, and I don't know how, different this is from other vultures, but it just talked about how the pairs will soar together and do aerial displays of rolling and diving, and that they're much more acrobatic than other vultures. I thought that was just kind of cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So there's, as I said, I think there's, from a phylogenetic perspective, there may be some interesting more work to do on some of this. So the clade that it's in, lammergeiers are very aerial in terms of flying over these landscapes and these high mountains looking for things. Madagascar serpent eagle is called that because it looks like an eagle. And so I think bearded vulture, common names being what they are, bearded vulture is obviously a scavenger, but it's, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's kind of at the base of that part of the tree, which does include clades of African eagles and things.
So this thing was called a vulturine fish eagle, and people have speculated historically they thought it belonged not with other vulture things, but with fish eagles, which I don't see that, but I guess that's what people thought about it.
I think people didn't. It took them a while to appreciate the fact that they were just sitting around pulling palm fruits off of things most of the time. and then what do you do with it? It's like, wait a minute, that's not an eagle. That's not a vulture.
John, I love just that you. I love that you love how much that their life is just simple, that they can just sit there and eat.
Absolutely.
I remember one time, I think it was on our ring-billed gull episode. Me and Amanda always talk about this whenever we see them. You talked about just how there's something beautiful about the simplicity of their life, of just flying back and forth from the dump to the beach. It's like, go to the dump, get all your food, and then just come back to the beach, and that's their life. And I love that perspective, and it's so much fun to think of.
Ideal life.
Yeah. And it is
a simple life.
It has nothing to do with John's actual life, which is complicated, has like
of course.
30,000 different moving pieces. So this is, he longs for a time when he doesn't need me to remind him of his calendar. Of like 10 times a day.
I wish I could just sit on a palm tree and eat fruit 60% of the day or whatever, too.
A lot of respect for this bird.
I think quality of life is going to be my primary, point of emphasis for the
birds that you're going to pick.
The birds you pick.
March Madness, yeah. I'm just
I was going to say, we could do a bracket of like quality of life style.
Oh yeah, what do you value?
The ring-billed gull and the palm.
Yeah, the palmlet vultures.
Palmlet vulture. Those are on the. Those are two spots.
I want to be a club-winged mannequin and be able to make sounds with my wings like that.
Oh.
I don't want ring-billed gull. Good Lord, John, what are we going to do? That's the exact opposite. What are we going to do if we ever retire? I'm not going from the beach to the dump.
To the dump.
This is not going to be my life.
Well, so are you okay with sitting in a palm tree and plucking fruits off and for every 15, 20 minutes?
I'm not okay with that. No tea stores, there's no bookstores, there's no museums, there's no mountains.
You gotta give it to ring-billed gulls. At least a lot of them migrate.
Yeah.
That sounds complicated. I don't know if that's a selling point, John.
I know. It's like getting out into the adventure side.
Global warming will take care of that. They won't have to move.
So we are undervaluing the aspect of palmlet vultures that has them foraging along the lakeshore for snails and crabs and things like that.
Okay.
There you
they
go.
Do a little
crustacean activity for.
I wonder
spice.
if they poop in their palm trees, or if they have to go somewhere else to do that. So that would make them move a few times a day at least. I don't know. I have no idea. Never seen a live one.
So it did say they occasionally attack domestic poultry and feed on carrion. So have they been observed eating dead things? Sometimes
so
it's just
they'll do a little, and they've even been. I was surprised that they've even been seen with other vultures at carcasses on occasion too.
Oh,
interesting. Huh.
So
and apparently they eat crabs and stuff like that from the water,
okay.
water's edge. So
so I think they're. If you look at them, they've got a pretty good sized bill with a good hook on it. So yeah, I think they could grab something and take care of it.
And then are they on
But that's actually something I've never looked at. So one of the things that's fascinating about vultures versus say eagles is eagles are using their feet all the time to catch stuff. That's one of their so their feet are agile, thick, strong, very sharp claws. You look at like New World vultures, which are what I know best, and condors and turkey vultures couldn't do anything with their feet other than just walk around. Like they're short, thick, stubby things that are literally just for walking. They're not using them for any kind of foraging in terms of what they're doing. So they, when they find a carcass, they're just ripping meat out and swallowing it, as opposed to doing anything with their feet. And so it'd be interesting to know whether palm nut vultures do a little more with their feet than
they
some
do.
of these.
They do. They manipulate the fruit and hold it with their feet. So they're like tearing pieces of it off with their feet, not with their beaks like that. Although I imagine they do too, and not just with their beaks, but.
Yeah. So there again, Amanda, coming back with this question of vulture versus eagle.
Yeah.
They're doing some things that I would say that I don't think the large old world vultures do anything like that. Although there is this incredibly cool small old world vulture called Egyptian vulture, which will take rocks and actually crack ostrich eggs by dropping the rock on the banging the ostrich egg with the rock, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. It's like using tools. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very we should talk about birds that use tools.
Oh, yeah.
I would like that. Yeah.
Sometimes there are a number of birds that use tools.
Very cool.
Well, I'm glad we picked this bird too, because we had a listener, Scotty, who's asked us multiple times to do a vulture.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And yeah.
And we picked the weirdest one.
Yeah.
No, we
Be
didn't.
careful what you wish for, Scotty. Yeah, this is a fun one. This is super cool, John.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Certainly brought back memories for me.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, so RJ, I want to know if Ariana listened to our last.
Oh, she did. Yeah, and she sent some pictures too. Yeah.
Did she laugh at me at our explanation of?
Yes, she said she really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Rolling a J. Or no, preparing a J, sorry.
Preparing, not rolling. Rihanna said, "Hi, I'm so glad it gave you all a laugh. It made me smile too when I listened to the episode this morning. My trip was great. I saw so many lifers for me. A Steller's jay, a varied thrush, American dipper, red-breasted nuthatch, common loon. Oh, there we go.
Oh, how cool.
Harlequin duck, white-winged scoter, surf scoter, and a green-winged teal. And then she sent some pictures of some harlequin ducks too. So we can go ahead and post these as well. So
what a bird!
Awesome.
Way better than wood ducks, Amanda. Way better.
Oh, come on. Come on. Shannon. Oh, that was a good trip. She saw a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah.
And we do have a mailbag question this week as well. Should we get into that one? I sent this one earlier to everyone to read. This is this is from Linda Lutz, who we all know from she lives in the Chicago area. But Linda sent a note and said, I was wondering if you ever thought of having a live broadcast. It might be kind of fun to explore for a Lake Cook meeting. I understand nothing about the production of the podcast and don't even know if that's possible, but it might be fun. Meanwhile, we recently did a birding trip to Mongolia. Our guide illustrated the field guide to Mongolian birds, so quite knowledgeable. However, he's really wacky. So halfway into our trip, he got food poisoning and had to go to a hospital several hours away for a couple days. This left Steve and I in our camp with no English speakers and we know no Mongolian. We managed to understand from the young woman who was cooking when the meals were, but nothing else. This is pretty remote and at about 8,000 feet and about 32 degrees or so. So we spent the day covered in these camel blankets with our hats on and jackets on. I knitted and listened to Birds of a Feather podcasts, which I have to say were very comforting, hearing familiar voices and banter. And of course, educational as well. A great connection to home. And that was from Linda Lutz. So that was awesome to hear. Thank you, Linda.
Awesome, Linda.
That is a lifetime story to tell because that is scary. You know what I want if I'm in that situation? I want these, which are the new AirPods by Apple, AirPods Pro 3. And then I would want to make sure I had some kind of outside connection through, I don't know how, I don't know what could function where she was, because there's live translation on this.
Oh,
so
wow.
you could actually, and I think this is such a, if you have connection somehow, it's such a great thing to be able to talk to people and it'll translate what you say and you can translate and it'll translate what the person's saying to you so that you can have
amazing.
You're not stranded in a place where
I will bet large amounts of money it wouldn't work on the Mongolian plateau.
Well, there's not all the languages are not there, but if you're in Spanish, Portuguese, French, there's several languages now that are part of this. But so I'd be desperate for I wouldn't be looking for my knitting needles, but good for her. When my mom was healthy, it would have been knitting needles. And in fact, she was devastated by the changes after 9/11 when they wouldn't let you bring knitting needles, metal knitting needles on planes anymore. So it interfered with her knitting. So she had to have a whole set of stuff here to be able to knit. She wasn't all that fond of the wooden knitting needles. So my mom would have knit too. After cursing the guide for leaving.
Leaving her stranded.
Your mom would not have been convinced to go look for birds in Mongolia.
No.
She would have passed.
That's true.
That's
I thought you were going to say, Shannon,
story.
with the headphones that you could listen to Birds of a Feather. I was like, oh, here we go. But if she was able to translate, she would have been off looking at birds. And
let's just say if I'm in Mongolia like that, I'm not listening to us talk. No offense to us.
Well,
but I'm not listening to the sound of my own voice. I hate the sound of my own voice.
We could go the other way. How do we sound in Mongolian?
Oh, there you go.
Cool.
We get a huge, all of our listeners are in Mongolia. Linda spread the word of Birds of a Feather out there. That'd be cool.
Well, I think it's great that people will tell us stories about their lives. I mean, it's so fun.
Yeah.
I've never been to Mongolia.
I was going to say, she's doing a lot cooler things than RJ and me.
Yeah. Where are you going next?
Wait a minute. You guys went to Arizona. No.
No offense to Arizona. Arizona, awesome. Yes.
Yeah, we were in Buffalo Grove yesterday birding. How does that compare to Mongolia?
To Mongolia? Exactly.
You live your life. And it's simple going to and from the dump and the beach.
Yes. To the beach.
That's what that is. That's what a trip to that's what a trip to Buffalo Grove is.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
For us, those are trips to hockey rinks. Every time people say where they're from or bring up some place, all I can think of is I know how to get to the hockey rink there.
Ringbell gull you.
No, we went all over the place with hockey rinks. We did not just go from the beach to the dump.
Go all over the place. Sometimes they stop in the parks and eat earthworms. It's a good life. Kind of like a palm nut vulture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the palm nut vulture gets out every now and then for a crab or
Yes.
There you go.
They're not always in that tree.
Tonight, dear.
Well,
If I see one more palm fruit.
Do they get tired of palm fruits?
Well, thanks, Linda, for sending that note. That was awesome to hear.
That was so cool, Linda. Thank you.
Yeah. And John, do you want to close it out on the palm nut vulture?
Yeah. Again, I think we've just been talking about the Mongolian Plateau. Sub-Saharan Africa is one of the most amazing places on this planet. And when you go there, you might see palm nut vulture.
Thank you to everyone for listening. We continue to get great feedback from you all, so thank you for being a part of this with us. You all are the reason why we do this, so thank you for listening and following along. See you all next week. We love you all. Thanks.